Sweet surrender, as I love, serve, and remember.
The first week was spirit, then we went to heart, then we went to mind, and then we went to body. And so today, in just collectively being with all of that, came surrender and celebration. So I had to be, how does that tie into all four of spirit, mind, heart, body? So just before I begin, I'd like to invite, if you want to stand, I would invite you to stand, but you don't have to stand. But so those who want to stand. Anyone want to stand? You don't have to do anything. I'm not going to stick a microphone in your face. Okay. Anyone? And then, whether you're sitting or standing, I invite you. Again, you don't have to do any of this, but I invite you, if you'd be willing to put out both your arms as far to look up a little and see if you can feel your heart space opening. There's a spiritual teacher who said all spirituality is opening our heart into infinity. So just let go of anything that's blocking our heart from being open to infinity. And we're just going to take just a few moments in silence, just opening our heart space into infinity. Thank you. In gratitude, we let it be. And I invite you, you can sit. And now we're going to actually do the same thing sitting. If you're willing to close your eyes, you don't have to move your body at all for this. Just what I'd like to invite you to do is create that same feeling inside of you without moving any part of your body. Just that feeling of your heart open to infinity. Open, open, open. Just a few moments of silence. In gratitude, we give thanks, and so it is. And that's surrender. Feels good, doesn't it? Doesn't surrender feel good just to let everything go and let our heart be open into infinity? Ralph Waldo Emerson said that the greatest form of surrender is to completely love. That the greatest form of surrender is to completely love. And that's what surrender is. It's just completely love, not living ourselves excuses not to love. It's always, as Christine was saying, it's always our choice to participate in the greatest love story ever told. At the same time, it's hard to keep this energetic going, to keep our hearts wide open, to live in this vast letting go. So for many people, when we talk about surrender, we recognize it as a time of crisis, when we just can't go on anymore. Our whatever it is that we've used to hold on to are no longer working, and things are falling apart, and we know that we cannot do it on our own. And so I love just that word help, just in those moments, help. I can't do it. That's a powerful time of surrender. And so I think most of us have had that really big moment, and there's also, even if you haven't had big moments, we've all definitely had those moments on our spiritual journey. Help. It's a crisis. Help. I've been doing something, help. So we get those little stages where we just get to a point, help. And we open, and that's a moment of surrender. Help. So why don't we live that way all the time? Because this is where it starts to get, this is where we deepen on our spiritual journey. Or at least, well, I know we're already doing all this. This is just a reminder. I love that you said that in the prayer today. We don't want to live in a constant state of help, because what that becomes is a in therapy, they call it, in psychotherapy, they call it learned helplessness. And we learn to constantly be in a victim state. Oh, I can't do this. Help, help, help. So it's an incredible moment of surrender, but if we're constantly living in help, 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 we can move into a place of, I have no power, I can't do anything. And we know that's not true, that we know empowerment is a really important part of our journey. I know you all know this. Empowerment is an important part of our journey, where we choose, where we know we have choice every step of the way. We know that we are one with the power and the presence of pure spirit, and from that place we make choices, and from those choices we can create a better life. We don't have to constantly wait on something else. We can choose to make a better life. If we have habit patterns that are not working for us, we can choose, and if we can't do it on our own, we go to a practitioner. But even a practitioner is going to say, you need to do the work yourself. You need to change. You have to work on your self-talk. You have to work on how you're perceiving this, so you can shift these thought patterns, because it's only in shifting these thought patterns that things are really going to shift externally. We have to change internally. So we're incredibly empowered by this teaching. And when I say this teaching, yes, we teach it here in Centers for Spiritual Living, but we know it's out there everywhere. You know, the power of visualization, the power of affirmations, the power of just holding to these new ideas, allowing new ideas to create a new reality. We see it everywhere. It's an empowering place to live. So how does that work together with surrender? That's what I mean. We had these moments like, it works until it doesn't work. I remember a practitioner said that to me. She says, yep, it works until it doesn't work. I have so much power, and then I'll run into one of my limits. Like, yeah, even though I've done all this work in the visualization, it's just still not working. So we have limits. Empowerment has its limits because there's still me, a finite vehicle. So what we're looking at is empowerment and surrender working together. And in order to do that, we recognize first what their limits are and then how they work well together. So a limit of empowerment is that we are limited humanly. There's times where we all need help, where we need to surrender and say, help. And the other shadow side of empowerment is control. The opposite of surrender is control, right? So has anyone been able to control your whole life? And does it lead to peace? Does it lead to freedom, joy, openness if you're trying to control everything? If we are trying to control everything? So it's good to be empowered, but empowered on steroids is control. Where we have to be like, oh, this isn't going to work unless I'm thinking the right thoughts and doing the right things, and I have to do my treatments, and I have to do my affirmations, and I have to say the right things, and I have to show up the right way, and I have to plan everything and structure everything and sort of organize everything, right? There becomes a point where that's too much. We've all been there. We've all been in those situations where, and I am guilty of both, just owning that there are times where I have corrected what somebody has said because it feels out of alignment, or they've corrected, or I have been corrected what I say, because we have to say everything the right way. And if we don't say it the right way, that's our own version of hell, saying things the wrong way. Yeah. Doesn't lead to peace, joy, freedom. So we need empowerment, but empowerment working with surrender, which is an allowing, which is an openness, which is that heart open to infinity. How does that look? Well, as I do all the time, I love, in the old days you had to find a million books. Now I just Google everything. And it was interesting. I couldn't get those two. I'm not saying they're not out there, but I wasn't finding it. My particular research was not finding good stories for empowerment and surrender together. So I'm just stuck using my story. And the thing I can say is I know how it works for me. I like other people's stories, but I do feel pretty strongly about this as it's how I live my life. So I've taught some of you this, you've heard this before, and I hope I bring a little more clarity if I can, I don't know. So I've talked about in the past, my big moment of surrender, my crisis moment was when I was in a relationship 30 years ago, and I always say, and it was falling apart. And I recognize that's not really what was happening. It was me saying things quickly. What happened was I was living in Virginia on the East Coast, and I had used affirmations, created my life, didn't want it. I'm like, I want to live my life for God. I surrendered. What is my life to look like? And I stayed in that, and I had the experience, just pure light. The New Thought Church I had been into just a few times in LA, Santa Anita Church. It's an independent New Thought church. I was all in the light. I was in the light. It was in the light. I'm like, this is my way forward in life. And I knew my life was going to be different from this moment on. Packed everything up. My whole family's on the East Coast. I'm going to the West Coast. I'm going into a New Thought church. I'm living my life for God. And I did. Started taking classes. They were 2 days a week, so it was really hard to live my life for God. It was only 2 nights a week. And I was in my mid-20s. The community was much a lot older than I was, so I wasn't really finding connection relationship-wise. And so I was living my life, and I started dating this guy who was very affectionate and warm and loving. We had other issues, but that wasn't one of them. And the struggle started to be, I wasn't really that drawn to being at the church. I'm like, I would, I stopped going Sundays regularly, and classes were becoming less interesting to me. And I was torn apart inside because I just moved my whole life. I knew, I'd had the vision, I knew this was the path I was supposed to be on, but I kept picking my boyfriend over the church. And I kept, I'm gonna change, and I never could change. I could never make different choices. I meant to, I had the thought to, wasn't following through. And so it wasn't until it was a whole year of this constant war. And it was wearing me down because this was supposed to be the life that I was going. This wasn't I'm just giving my life to God. This is this is supposed to be my life, and I don't seem to be interested in it. This is a real problem. And I went to talk to the minister, and the minister said the most profound thing to me. He said, the reason why you're not drawn to going to this church or being in classes is because what you really want you're getting from your boyfriend. That sort of threw me. But I thought about it, and it was true, because what he was giving me was tangible, everyday love. What I recognized was that I did love, and I do use, by the way, if I love your definition of God, I do use sort of a traditional essence of God, but it's exactly what she says. It's everything. It's in us, through us. It's an I-thou that is in oneness. And I love this presence with my whole heart, body, and being. I've had many spiritual experiences by this. I knew I was supposed to, but what I did not have was a loving, tangible, loving relationship on a daily basis. Life just felt normal. We take our past into us, and I came from a very secular past, agnostic, atheist. To me, life was just a normal life. I didn't feel the presence of God in my everyday life. That was an abstraction. And if crisis moments had big moments, I would feel it, but I wasn't feeling it on a regular basis. My boyfriend's love, I was feeling every day. So I'm like, So I remember going to Boston for Christmas. My family went to Old South Congregational Church on December 26th, and I said, the only way this is going to work is that if God is more important to me than anything else in my life, that I had to put God first in my life every day, no matter what was going on in my relationship, no matter how tired I was, no matter what emotional, no matter how busy I was, no matter what, the divine presence had to be first in my life every day, or I was never going to experience it every day. And I was just crying inside, just those moments where you just let everything go and you're so utterly clear about what the only thing that matters to you. Y'all had that experience? You had that experience where you had just brought to what really matters to you? And so even as I got that clarity, I realized that's still abstract to me, though. That's nice. I feel it in my heart, but I know as soon as I go back to LA, that's a nice thought, but it's not grounded in anything. I need what my boyfriend was giving me was tangible love. I need tangible love with you, God. The divine presence, infinite love, intelligence, whatever you want to call it, I need it. And so I just listened. I was asked to just, okay, listen between now and New Year's, just listen. And I'll tell you what to do. And I listened, and it told me exactly what to do. That every single day, no matter what, I had to do something for my heart. I had to do journaling, I had to do exercise, and I had to meditate. No matter what. And it wasn't about an end goal. It wasn't about exercising for health or for appearance. It was exercising for God. It was writing in my journal for the divine presence. It was meditating to know my oneness and union in God. Everything, those three things every day. And I didn't recognize, and so I made that commitment. December 31st, 1991, I made that commitment. And I've been living it ever since, and will live it to the day I die. It changed my life instantly. But I didn't change my life. I didn't have to control everything. And what it was, and I realized as I was thinking about empowerment and surrender, it was both of those things. I was totally surrendered. The divine life is my life. That's all that matters to me. But I was also empowered. As you were saying, Christine, we have to participate. And those three practices were my way of participating. Surrender can be, the negative side of surrender is we can get too much in victimization and we can get too passive. I'm just surrendered. I don't have to do anything. So I was both empowered to participate, but what I was surrendering to was not just the world around me. I don't want to surrender to the things happening. There's a lot of bad things happening. I'm not surrendering to that. Don't want to even surrender to my weaknesses or surrender to my limitations. I recognize I have them, but I don't want to surrender to my habit patterns of thought. I don't want to surrender to my limitations. I'm surrendering to that which is beyond all of it. That was really key. So when you're asking yourself what you're surrendering to, what are you surrendering to every day? Is it infinitely, I remember I had a professor, and I love this, it has to be infinitely, unconditionally loving. If you are surrendering to something that has any type of judgment of you, that's not what you want to be surrendering to. Total, unconditional love and infinite intelligence, infinite wise. That it's not like this presence that you're surrendering to isn't in doubt, it's not afraid, there's mystery, but it's not in mystery. It's completely conscious and awake. All of the time. It is always already enlightened. So it is fully enlightened and fully loving. That's what we're surrendering to, and only that. And only that. It changes your life. But we have to participate in that surrender. We have to be empowered. And I remember when so everything unfolded after that. Just my life, everything that you hear, surrender in your life more than you can ever imagine. It just kept flowing for years. It just kept flowing. That's when I often talk about working in the psychiatric hospital. That wonderful time of life. Just loved it, loved my work. And I remember talking to one of the people there, and I was saying, I don't think it even matters whether it's, it's meditation, exercise, journal. So I don't even think it matters. Because she had long blonde hair, and she used to twirl her hair. I said, even if you say you're going to twirl your hair 15 minutes, but you're doing it for the divine, you're doing it for God, that's going to change it, because it's your heart, it's their intention, it's that surrender. Okay, I'm going to do this. It's not, we get so focused on what meditation practice am I doing, how am I doing the right practices, exercise, journaling, am I doing it right? It's not it's the intention behind it. Just at the beginning, you set your intention. That's the power, and staying connected to that intention. So I didn't do it every day. I was new to all of this. I hadn't even heard the term spiritual practices before this. I was just doing them as much as I could, but my intention was every day. I didn't go through guilt. Someone said, well, don't you feel guilty that you don't do it perfectly? No, because I know my heart. I know my heart's there every day. And I know these practices, no matter what, are what's really mattering to me, but I don't expect to be perfect either. Because my God that I'm surrendering to is unconditionally loving. Always loves me no matter what. I knew that because I had surrendered my life to it. So as you're looking at your life, what does surrender and empowerment look like for you? Not just at the big moments, not just in the big life choices, but every day, what does empowerment and surrender look like with you? What does that dance look like for you? And then the end part of this story is the challenges. So we heard it again today, and Reverend Michael was one of my ministers, and it was always, surrender your life, turn your life over, and everything works out, and you're in the flow, and it's unimaginable good, and da 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 da. And it was like that for years until it wasn't. And I really struggled with that, and surrendering. Things were coming that stopped feeling good, that were challenging, that I didn't like, that were hard, and I couldn't understand it. I was so angry, and the anger for me, the suffering is the ideal, the expectation, and then the actual, and that gap was getting bigger, but I knew I loved Spirit. So I was so confused. Like, I'm doing the same thing, I'm surrendering, I'm giving my life over, but now it's getting really hard. And it wasn't until someone said, and I totally realized this was me, was that what we believe we're on this life, what we think surrender is supposed to do is give us a life of comfort and ease. And it was for a long time because I needed it. Comfort the afflicted. I had been struggling for so many years that it was such a joy to be in this easy flow. Everything's happening and it's wonderful and I'm loving everybody and everything. But if I want to grow, if I wanted to continue to grow, Spirit was going to have to push me into areas that weren't comfortable, that we're going to actually start, and they say, comfort the afflicted, but afflict the comfortable. And as I was getting completely safe and everything was going, it's like, okay, let's push you a little farther. Let's push you a little past where your comfort zone is, where you might not be so happy, where this might not feel like it fits you, your small idea of who you are. I'm going to push you. And the pushes didn't always feel so gentle. We all have a choice. Every one of us has a choice. I didn't have to do it. I could have said, you know what? Nah, this is really way past my comfort zone. You've pushed me farther than I want. I am going to stay where I am. And Spirit, being unconditionally loving and infinitely wise, would have loved me with that decision. So why would I follow these visions that make me uncomfortable? And I'm saying uncomfortable. There were times where I was really, really uncomfortable and a lot of pain because it didn't make sense. I was very confused because I wasn't enjoying my daily essence and I couldn't figure it out because I still loved the same presence. Why would I continue to follow it if I knew I was going to be just loved anyway, no matter what, whether I followed it or not? Because I was more interested in what Spirit wanted for my life because I knew it was wiser than me, and that's the intelligence part. That's not just about the love, there's the intelligence, and I knew it knew things about me that I didn't know about me. And it was going to demand of me that I heal things that needed to be healed, that I grow into areas that I never thought I could ever do, like be a pulpit minister. Didn't even enter my mind. You have to understand, I was in class, I never said a word in class. I didn't feel petrified, I just knew I wasn't going to speak. I mean, I was so quiet. My brother, Gloria remembers when my brother George came to one of the services when we were on 2nd Street, and he started talking and he started crying. Because he said, this is not my sister that I know. She used to sit at our table and never say a word. I can't believe she's up there speaking. It was such a shock for him. Spirit works miracles through us. If I can get up here, you all can do things that you never thought you could do, but you have to be willing. You have to trust and know that this love loves you more than you love yourself, almost sees you in ways that you don't even see yourself, and you're willing to walk through those discomforting, surrender into its will. That's why that its will becomes so important, because its will is going to demand things of us that we would never demand of ourselves, but it's out of love and it's out of wisdom. But it's not going to do that until we're really firmly established that we know that it is love and it is wisdom. So I had all those years knowing it was love and wisdom before I was willing to go further and deeper and wider. your spiritual journey the greatest love story ever told? How far are you willing to be pushed? You can be surrendered and empowered and still be uncomfortable. I just gave a whole long story just to say that one thing. You can be surrendered, empowered, and still incredibly uncomfortable. They aren't mutually exclusive. And so we think of today, what happened last week with Tyree. You know, Tyree Nichols. For those of you who don't know, is a young black man who was stopped and beaten by 5 police officers, and 3 days later died. And then they just let out the video clips on Friday and Saturday. I just can't watch them. And you know, I say how horrible it is, but we know there's people being hurt every day, but this is visual, you can see it, and so it reminds you, oh, this is really happening. It's always that, like, moving from abstract into, like, oh no, this is really happening, and it's awful and horrible, and you can't even carry it in your body. Do we want to surrender into that? Say, oh, well, that's okay. Because I hear a lot, as I was going through a lot of these things about surrender, it's a lot about accepting everything as it is. Well, it is what it is. Is that really the energy we want to approach something? Well, it is what it is. Just accept it. It's neither bad or good, it just is. You know, this is where spirituality, when you take any one statement, it can become incredibly hurtful or dogmatic. It doesn't mean there isn't truth to that, but it has to be combined with a lot of other truths as well for it to be real and true. So what's an empowered choice we can make? I believe very strongly in the power of prayer. There's a lot of dismissal of prayer, and I truly believe there's a dismissal of prayer because I don't think people really pray. They say, oh, you're in my prayers, but they aren't actually praying. We have this, you got to meet Christine, we have Jerry, we have Gloria, we have Sherry, we have this incredible power prayer team. I've told my colleagues about y'all, I didn't even tell you. Like, when they pray, this collective prayer, and our prayer world is growing too. Our prayer team is going to be growing this year with more people. And I know you all pray, but this is a concern when people send in prayers. They pray, and I see amazing things happen all of the time. So when you see something like Tyree, you say, well, what's my prayer going to do? You know, I pray. That is an unempowered choice. I would say the greatest empowerment we can do, we can get involved, social justice, laws passed, however you're feeling called. There's a rally in Oakland today at 5 p.m. that might call you. But at the very least, as people on the spiritual journey, we have, I believe, a call, a deep spiritual call from this infinite love intelligence of the universe to, at the very least, respond with serious and real prayer. Not just, oh, I'll just pray. But I mean real prayer, really connect. It changes the vibrational frequency. And the more people who are really praying, it does make a difference. That internal shift makes a difference on the external. And of course, when we're giving and participating and surrendering to the divine, what is mine to do? And you might, in this particular situation, may not be called on, to go to a rally or to take an action. Only you can follow you. Only you can follow what that divine presence has guided for you to do. But you're never a victim. We're never victims. We are surrendered to the divine love intelligence that's the all power of the universe. I keep pointing out there, only because it's so big. It could be down there. We surrender and we pray. We are empowered to speak our word. Your spiritual journey, the greatest love story ever told. When I was in ministerial school, you know, I don't know if you know, often when you're in a Bible class, they'll give you certain sections to read in the Bible or chapters, or they'll pick a theme, parables, or whatever. I was in my first term of ministerial school. It was a crazy time, 6 classes, working full-time, doing service work, and the Bible teacher gave us the assignment, you are to read the whole Bible in the next 10 weeks. I didn't even begin because I knew he was kidding. I'm like, he doesn't mean that. So I didn't even do it. I'm like, first week, I'm like, and the second week, I'm like, oh, he keeps talking like we're doing this. Oh, he's not kidding. The whole Bible? Is that even, I don't even think it's possible. So I did what any sane person would do who's really busy. I just skimmed it. And I had the most extraordinary experience skimming it. We know, like, and in the Old Testament is the one that comes to mind of just these brutal stories that happen in the Old Testament. There's just some brutality there. And there's, you hear about the angry God or the vengeful God. You hear all sorts of negative things, which are true, are accurate. By the way, we have to remember, in spiral dynamics, they look at the evolution not just of human individuals, but our entire planet, our human species, has been evolving. So when Judaism came on the planet, it was at a much earlier stage of evolution. So yes, it was a much more violent, cruel time, and we can't judge it by our standards because we have the benefit of thousands of years of evolution. So we have to look at it from that perspective as well. But what shocked me when I went through it, skimming, was how deeply the love of God was at the center of everything. Like, I've always heard, oh, it's such a vengeful God. If you don't do this, I'm going to smite everybody. And I guess God does kill people at different times. I'm not a Bible expert. But in the big picture, when I was skimming really fast, I'm like, and yet, even though they kept screwing up and they kept doing horrible things, there was this loving presence that was still there. I'm like, oh, it never disappeared. It never abandoned. It always kept threatening to, but it never did. And it kept evolving, the relationship evolving, and the New Testament is an evolution of that. And for those who are Muslim, would say it evolved into the Quran. That this God of Abraham never walked away. And nor, even though it seemed like it demanded perfection, never even had close to perfection with human beings who were very violent, could be very violent and cruel. When we're looking at our spiritual journey, the greatest love story ever told, it's not about human perfection. I've noticed a lot lately is spirit itself is perfect, obviously. It wouldn't be spirit if it was imperfect. But human beings, we are inherently imperfect. We do things that hurt people. It sucks. Ooh, it's bad. People do things to us that hurt us. That really is bad too. It doesn't go away, those human limitations. The most evolved people that I know still have human limitations. As I think I mentioned a week or so ago, the professor that I was taking this class said, even saints aren't saints. Like nobody. I'm reading Yogananda, and I'm reading him. Jack gets to hear me go, because I'm reading things that he was saying later on in his journey, and it's so clear that he has evolved. And it's so clear that things that he was thinking earlier on in his journey as a teacher, and it evolved through challenges and struggles, and maybe here's some new things. I'm like, he did change. He didn't stay the same person. There's nobody who is perfect. There's nobody who's like, I have one teaching and I will never change. And what brings change is struggle. What brings change is struggle, and we struggle as humanity. We struggle when we see things like Tyrene. Our hearts are broken open. And it's not just Tyrene. I mean, it's horrible, but unfortunately, there's things that are horrible that are happening every day that we can point our fingers to. We have climate change, and we have things that aren't even that what's happening just on our planet, in nature. There's so much that we struggle with. But there's something that when we know the love intelligence of the universe that is greater than all of it, things will show up that we can't even begin to imagine. But we have to know what our base is, what our foundation is, what am I surrendering to, and how empowered am I to live it every day. Not every once in a while, not when it just gets really rough, not when the problems get really difficult, but every day. Because the more we do that every day, the more we can open up to worlds, when I say we get uncomfortable, the more we can open up to that discomfort and we won't fall apart. The more we can face challenges that seem insurmountable, but then we have this base of surrender and empowerment, we can face unimaginable challenges. On my Zoom call with my family the other day, my brother George was out in Sacramento for 3 days. On a board, he said, I know nothing about this. It's about the power systems in California. I'm not going to say what he said because I didn't understand a word of what he was talking about. But he's going on the power grids and how, and he said, this is a problem, and people are working on this problem every day, just how to expand, how to deal with this. And I was listening to it from a place of excitement, like, wow, like they are taking some serious challenges that we have in California, and every day they are opening up to creative possibilities, creative solutions. They're working with each other, they're talking with each other, they're investing their money, time, energy. I mean, this isn't even what my brother does for a living, but it's all these people invested. How are we going to solve these problems? Yes, it's uncomfortable, but when we have our base as surrender and empowerment, we can do anything because we are connected with the infinite love, intelligence of the universe. And this is what makes the greatest love story. Oh, this is how I want to end. This is what I remember. The greatest love story ever told. When I see the Bible, that's, it's not a Bible of perfect people. But the key is that the divine presence in the Bible, they call it God, Jehovah, is the center of the story. Everyone here's story is the greatest love story ever told. Your story is a holy scripture. Your story is a holy scripture on this planet. And it becomes the holy scripture the moment you know that the source of your life is the divine and not your limited self. What makes the Bible, they are so completely human, so completely full of ignorance on so many times, a lot of the times, but they knew that their source was the divine. And that's what makes it a holy scripture. So as you look at your life, your spiritual journey, the greatest love story ever told, when someone hears your life, are they going to know? Are they going to know and know that they know that the divine is the source of your life? That's the centerpiece of your life every day. Like, are they going to know that about you? Are they going to see it in the way you live your life? That the divine is the center of your life? Because when that's true, we're living the Holy Scripture. That's the celebration. That's the joy, because nothing can ever take that away. No matter how uncomfortable it gets, you're returning to that infinite source every day, and there's such a profound joy. I said, why did I follow it to discomfort? Because there's no greater love, even when it's uncomfortable, than the love of pure spirit awake in our life. So as we open up in prayer, I invite us to be empowered. And the empowerment is you can choose to do this or not. That's the empowerment. Just open your heart into that surrendered state that we began in. And in that surrendered state, as you're feeling your heart open to infinity, remember and call forth your intention for this service today, and surrender into that intention again. Surrender into that love. And we're not done with service yet, but in some way so far, thus far in the service, has there been a little bit of a shift, a fulfillment of that intention here today? Just even if it's a little bit, has there been a little bit? Let's acknowledge that. Let's begin with acknowledging that which has already been given to each of us uniquely and individually in the privacy and intimacy of our own being. And if it hasn't, just see if we can open our heart and surrender even more into that intention, just to let go even more into that heart intention. Trust, and open even more to this intention. And expect even more before the service is over, before we walk out the doors here today, before we turn off our computers. Expect even more of a fulfillment of this intention. Surrender into that. And so it is from this place that we open our heart and our mind and our body and our soul into this beautiful time of prayer. For I know that I know that I know that at the very depths of every one of our beings, this is our deepest desire. This is our deepest heart and soul longing to know that we know that the divine light, this infinite love intelligence of the universe, is who we are, that we know our oneness with it. And we may know it in a different way than our neighbor, but we know it for ourselves. That longing is the divine longing in us to know itself, to feel itself, as our beautiful Christine was saying earlier, to feel itself as self-aware in every atom and cell of our being, in our emotional life, in our mental, intellectual life, in our soul and in our spirit, in our relationships, in our physical health and mental health and emotional health, in our financial life, in our creative expression, in our world, in this world, an earthly world, and in our divine spiritual world, on every level and dimension of being, we are opening even now to greater and greater unification with this one power and this one presence. We are open and willing to allow those things that separate us from the one power and one presence to dissolve into the nothingness from which it comes. We open more and more and more into that which is already. We don't need to change any physical, mental, or emotional circumstances. Whatever the conditions of the world are right now, even there in the midst of it is this power, this love intelligence that loves each of us passionately and intimately in ways we can't share with other people. There is something it knows about us that nothing else knows. It is so infinitely intelligent about what it knows about us. It is so wise. And we are one with that now. This is our deepest heart's longing. This is our soul longing. This is our entire being longing. And so today, here and now, we know that if the divine presence has put that longing in our heart, it is fulfilled. Maybe only a fraction of what we desire, but it is fulfilled, and it will continue to be fulfilled as we place our attention on that fulfillment and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. When we celebrate that fulfillment, we celebrate that what our spiritual journey and what it has been thus far. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for all those times in our spiritual journey that we have surrendered, where we have given over to this incredible love intelligence of the universe and trusted it with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. Thank you for those times where we have chosen over and over again every day to live our life for that love intelligence of the universe, to give over to it through the choices and the actions that we take. Yes, 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 our life reflects a yes to this infinite love intelligence of the universe, where we are becoming more and more where we don't know where the love intelligence stops and a human being begins, that it's all so completely intertwined in all that we are and all that we do, that the people who know us this very day know a beautiful aspect and expression of the divine. They see it, they know it, they feel it because we see it and we know it and we feel it. And this is where all healing begins and ends. In, through, and as one life, one love, one power. The other things begin to fade away. One love, one presence, one power, and we are it, here and now. And it is the Alpha and the Omega of not only our individual healing, but we hold this healing for all beings everywhere. And in this collective consciousness of wholeness and of oneness, we hold Tyree Nichols in that light and that love. That love knows no death, that he is on the other side of the veil, enveloped in love and healing light and healing peace and healing even joy, that he's not lost anything. And the connection between Tyree and his family that's still here on earth, we know there is a healing comfort and a healing tenderness that is keeping them all connected. Love knows no death. And we hold and see and feel that which has happened to Tyree, that we are all shifting. So these horrible acts of violence are no longer becoming a thing on this earth. And even those police officers who were involved in it, they are going through their healing. The presence and the power is where they are, and we are holding that the depth of the pain that created that violence is being healed even now. Our hearts are open into infinity. It includes all. And so we include all the police officers, Tyree, but also the systems, the collective energy. We hold all of it. And the Memphis police system, all police systems, justice system. We just keep getting bigger and bigger into the collective, onto the planet Earth, all the systems of the planet Earth, as well as all the individuals in the planet Earth, all sentient life form. And we go out into the cosmos, into the cosmos. There is no limit. This healing energy is no limit. There's only love. There is only love. This healing love, infinitely intelligence, and is right here at the center of our heart. Our hearts wide open into infinity, and our hearts right here in this present moment, in this time and space, being the vehicle of love beyond what we could ever possibly imagine. For this healing journey, for this spiritual journey, is the greatest love story ever told, and we are it. We give thanks, we give thanks, we give thanks, and we let it be now as we say together, and so it is.
I walk in God in all I do. I walk in God in all that I say.